Okay, this video introduces the question, was Charles Spurgeon right about the rapture? And those of you that are part of this apologetic and outreach ministry that's language based can see the advantages in approaching it from a language that is the Koine text, particularly because that first you would be contemplative, cognizant, now that is, you'd be more cognitive. You'd be interested in collaborating and considering these things, and it helps us avoid those who rather just emote, and whatever that is, that would be more between their ears. So at iamkoine.org, the Apologetic and Outreach Ministry of Landmark Missionary Baptist Church, you all have been trained, as I have, by people who actually have an interest in the Bible. So this controversy about the rapture, I really enjoy looking back at history because it's material that we can evaluate, and then we can compare it to our text and see what was omitted and see what are the current trends in rapturism, because people seem to be, their apologetic seems to be appalling. They would rather just simply verbally abuse or socially punish someone. Now, whatever that's about, you can go talk to them. I don't communicate well with people who don't communicate well. So let's look at it. This is from an excerpt from a book, Why Most Christians Believe in a Post-Trib Rapture, by C.W. And there's his name, Stein, and then L.E. But since I'm from Arkansas, there's no way I could pronounce that. So that's not what this class is about. So let's look at the text. But let me read the quote, just one quote out of his book, because it's really not for me to disclose all of his book. But he says in here, what most believers do not know is that Charles Spurgeon believed that the rapture and resurrection would happen at the same time following the Great Tribulation, that the judgment seat of Christ would happen and Satan would be bound for 1,000 years. He also believed that Jesus would then literally set up his kingdom on earth and rule for 1,000 years. He believed that a second resurrection would occur after the 1,000-year reign for the unrighteous dead. This would be followed by the great white throne judgment of God, and then there would be a new heaven and a new earth. So that then gives us the opportunity, is there a text for that? And here, this is, we've done this text several times. If you don't have your Bible app, for example, we've talked about that. It gives you, this is free, by the way. It was once called Wave Bible app. I don't know the new name. I'll look that up. But for those of you actually using the language, and this gives you something, because I know a lot of people are always glued to these, but I make sure that if there is screen time, it's with good things like this, because you can iterate in your practice, you can reinforce your learning. So I'd recommend that. But if you're not using that yet, you really need to, because this is an adverb that gives you your part of speech that we're looking at here. It's adverb. And then, and you remember this is emphasis. We ourselves. So it's very emphatic, first person plural pronoun. And then this is participles. These are participles. This is present active participle. This would be present. Now it's passive. Let me make that clear. Passive. But now this one's deponent. It's from a verb, late, oh my. You remember that oh my ending? And those of you that aren't really there yet, it's middle and passive in form, but it's active in meaning. So we have the ones who are living, and then again that's a present active participle, so it's continuous action. So the ones who are living, and then this is in apposition, the ones who, and that's your definite article here, it's plural, notice that, plural. Okay, so the ones who are oh, sorry. Yeah, this is deponent. I don't know why I wrote that up there. I should have wrote middle impassive. Middle impassive in form is deponent, deponent. And there it is there. But it's active in meaning. And if you take your app, if you're not using that, really, you couldn't have a better thing. I notice people just are all the time on these. So it's a present, passive, deponent, but it's active in meaning. So that's very interesting to see that. But really, you ought to be in the scholar by now with those little gadgets. The ones who are remaining. And then Perry, you see that preposition just glaring at us. See that? There it is. And that's around. So we're just, remaining around, just right around. Now, here's the verb here. Now this is passive. Future. There we go. And you see it's from harpazo. It's just got a rough breather, so that's why we pronounce it like letter H. Harpazo. So this says will be seized away. Now you can translate that here if you need the word raptured from the Vulgate, as people do. Raptured away. So there's your word that people really, really fight and work real hard to say rapture's in the Bible. So go ahead, even if you're King James only and they don't use the word, use it, I guess, because a lot of King James only advocates still bring words in that aren't there. So they want that word, so we'll use that word because that's not our battle anyway. So we'll be seized away. But here's the two words we'll look at. This is an adverb. This word here is adverb, and it's simultaneously. There. And then this one is a preposition. Preposition, and it translates together with. There we go. So it's very emphatic here in this text. Now, one error that some have, it's like the backfire effect. Some have worked so hard to make this the rapture text that they so over-invested. It's, as I teach my classes and I teach my own sons especially, I've really enforced it to them that your problem's not all your eggs in one basket. Your problem is you just have one egg in one basket. Now, it's called letterism, where you overwork something, but some have really overworked this 1 Thessalonians 4:17 so that when people like myself go in to evaluate it, to teach a class and to help people understand it and go to the TR, for example, which has this, that's the text that the King James Bible originates from or is in direct correlation with. Some dispute that, that's another class. However, then if you go here and you find out that it's simultaneously and together with, and you put, this is the only basket you have and the only egg you have, then you can become very unreasonable with people who are very reasonable. And for example, Grace in Focus, my magazine, the rapture in Matthew 24, 9 proofs. This is by Dr. Bob Wilkin. He's quite scholastic and unsurpassed in his approach and methodology. So if you want to read something very rational, very deliberate, methodical, and he references his seminary training, but he goes to another location to demonstrate other source material for rapture. So if you know people who've overworked or codepended or over-depended their adamant rapture assertion, and by using this text only, this becomes a problem because yes, Spurgeon was right about the rapture as it's expressed and worded outwardly, highly inflected in 1 Thessalonians 4:17a. I just put that there to mean I'm just working on the first part of it. So that's enough. It's just it's regrettable that a lot of us don't find a learning environment. In my profession as consultant, you help companies become learning organizations, and I would like to say churches were learning organizations, but that's not often the case. It's more emotive, more about influencers. It doesn't have much to do with the Bible text study. Now, it could, and sometimes people like to think it should, but that's not for us to impose on a local autonomous body that's under the headship of Christ doing their own thing. That's really for them. But if you are highly favored to be in a church that actually centers on the Bible, that promotes evaluation, critical thinking, and is actually a church where you can be scripted and you can enjoy the freedom. It's a high cost. If you ever want to know how much it costs, just go to Wounded Warriors website, go to Walter Reed Medical Center, go to the Global War on Terror and notice the maniacal mind of jihadis who incarnate their ideas, and then ask yourself, why would I want to be in an assembly in the United States of America where freedom to evaluate, study, and yes, that only leaks out in my lessons because people presume to do it here, and our church meets at 2100 Marshall Road in Jacksonville, Arkansas, and we're in the shadow of the United States Air Force Base, Little Rock Air Force Base, one of the largest C-130 air bases in the world. So it was quite unexpected for me to find people in such an obvious and conspicuous location, knowing the war on terror and knowing the religious factors involved in some of that, and there's obviously state factors and politics as well. And when you put two volatile things like politics and religion together, it was striking to me, even people that allegedly served in the military, but the military is like any other organization. Just because someone dons the uniform and draws a paycheck doesn't really mean they're really into the freedoms that they are actually providing, because they may not be for that. So we've had people stumble in our assembly and they wouldn't encourage the freedom to stop. So YouTube really worked out well for us because I can place a very professional exposition on the board. I can give very credible resources for people who would like to read and a rational evaluation. I can cite publications. And then that way, whatever their aim was to try to disrupt, it can't happen. So it's hard to imagine for me to think that this would be the case. But apparently this thing about the rapture is a long history. Somewhere in the past, Charles Spurgeon collided with a Darby was his name. So we'll continue to look at that, but we'll only look at it in light of the languages. So you have a blessed day and enjoy this video.